Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We have got quite a bit to get to here today, so if you want to chime in over on those pages, as I'm already dropping those likes and reacts, we do appreciate, because, well, it just helps with all those algorithmic things, but we'll also have those phone lines open a little bit later in the program as we do. So however you're choosing to interact, or just sit back and stay informed about the things affecting us here in the Borderland, few things top of mind as of this hour at this point, not quite at the end of the week here, but we've got a lot moving on. That CHIPS Act, the one that has been, well, particularly in the Lone Star State, getting a lot of focus on it, including some, I'm just going to call it unique for the moment anyway, bipartisan support, because considering that bipartisan is practically a four-letter word these days, anytime it comes up, it's a little bit notable, because the idea of there actually being support both from Texas Republicans and elected officials, including the governor, senators, those kind of folks, and the Biden administration, can't exactly argue to me that has happening quite a lot here, as we also have Steve Ivey joining us over on the social media, chiming in. Good afternoon to you as well. But again, after passage by both the House and the Senate at this point, again, that semiconductor supply and subsidy bill, the one that is being focused on reestablishing, or I guess just reaffirming, removing, putting more back in there, what is going on with semiconductor chip production in general, hence the name here in Texas. Very much now poised to be signed on after the governor and other have been supporting it, on President Biden's desk, expected to be signed before too long, and even some local advocacy probably coming up on that. And just speaking about governors there, John Brazelton asking what Texas city is Beto campaigning in today. You know what? I don't know that one offhand. Give me a minute. I'll try to see if I can figure it out here, because I know that whole, I mean, if I was doing my math right, that tour is going to take it to just before the election. So, yeah, I'm sure that's still going on there, as long as they're avoiding any of that other hot, melty, or otherwise blow you away kind of weather being had in the rest of the state. As is always the joke, if you don't like the Texas weather, wait 5 minutes or drive 5 minutes, as the case may be, because it's a little bit wild out there. So the CHIPS Act, one of the things going on, being celebrated in a lot of ways, including by El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, pushing for the idea of some of this now being made here in El Paso, as an idea of helping to fight the brain drain. Now, the actual use of that funds, and if it can come here, that kind of work would definitely have to come here. But again, the bipartisan nature of this, there were some votes against it. I know it wasn't a resounding success, which was a little bit surprising, maybe a little bit of sour grapes here, but that's not even one of the only things. Even with this kind of movement happening, more concerns about economic contraction, again, the talk of recession, and who gets to define it, continuing to come up here as we are looking at economic contraction in general happening for a second straight quarter, and what that means, but also busing, that whole effort being done by, well, initially Texas Governor Greg Abbott, but also others, including Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, at least in minor part, of busing those that were captured and released at the border to then other states, most notably Washington, D.C. That continues, of course, here. Steve Ivey saying, thinking that Beto is in Oro Grande, I think, here. And John Brazelton with the easy joke, I'm just going to say it there, the chips made in El Paso are salsa chips. Honestly, let's get that startup going. The idea of someone saying salsa chips from El Paso, I mean, we still are associated with the old El Paso brand, not sponsored, even if they aren't actually made here anymore. Are they? I'm pretty sure they're not. If there's anyone still manufacturing that out there, let me know. I'd be very curious to know. So, yeah, let's start with the salsa chips brand and make it a household name right there after Intel or whatever, what else have you, NVIDIA. Why not? Stranger things have happened. And we've got some tech incubators and systems like that going on in the area. I don't see why not. But again, back on that busing situation, a lot of consternation happening across the country. I know that at least some, again, the governors mainly mentioned here, Abbott and Ducey of Texas and Arizona, respectively, not exactly intending it to be a share the pain kind of moment, at least most of their public statements anyway, pointing to the idea of this being something that is intended towards making sure that the situation is known. And since a lot of this busing would happen anyway, going for funding of that. Now there is actually, well, I'll just quote the headline here from the Texas Tribune, calling busing of migrants from Texas a, quote, humanitarian crisis, end quote. Washington mayor asked for help from National Guard. Subheadline about Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey sending migrants to the nation's capital to prove a point about President Joe Biden's immigration policies. Now, that is absolutely something that we've been discussing a bit because, to my understanding, at least some of that probably happening from this area. I don't think we have exact numbers, but it was something that certainly Governor Greg Abbott talked about one of the last times he was in town anyway, visiting with the Border Sheriff's Association. No, that's not the full name, but that's essentially what it's about, and talking about the resources available to them, county coordinators, that kind of thing. So, and let's just also say that Texas, by most of the reasoning here, has been the lion's share of the actual busing happening, putting about 1,000 from particularly Yuma, again, according to the Wall Street Journal, as further quoted by the Texas Tribune, and that Texas has transported so far about 6,100 to Washington, even if there may be some conflicting reports about them not all necessarily making it to Washington, being let out sooner or later in some cases, including New York City, which if you look at a map is not exactly on the way. But the point of it was always not exactly a transportation program, even if that's the major factor, but rather essentially the political goal in it of getting attention. And whether or not that happens, again, as noted, the DC Mayor Bowser and also New York City Mayor Eric Adams have been asking the Biden administration for some help with it, including organization. And again, in the case of DC, the National Guard, unclear at this point, again, according to the Texas Tribune, if that has actually been, well, responded to as of just yet anyway. But one other topic that we've definitely been talking about, the introduction of our segments here kind of ended up being the discussion of them on them own. One of the interviews, or the interview we're going to be having on today, is going to be about some of those mental health resources. We've been talking about those, well, kind of as an undercurrent of a lot of the different stories we've been discussing lately. So it may come as a surprise to some that there's actually now a mental health emergency hotline for either crisis or suicide prevention. Now, of course, suicide prevention hotlines aren't exactly a new thing, nor is mental health crisis or those kind of things here in our area and other areas around the country, but there is now a national number that can be called. You may be very familiar with 911, but now 988 has been established and is active as of recent weeks in order to make it so that anyone, anywhere, in any part of the country can call and get resources immediately and help over the phone here. Like Matt is pointing out that the old El Paso brand is owned by General Mills. The only reason that sticks with me, and maybe I'm a little bit salty about this, is because there was some analysis of what was going on with economics in El Paso in previous eras of the economy, let's just call it at this point, because that was definitely pre-pandemic and a lot of things have changed since then. The idea that, I'm sure old El Paso was still a good mainstay for El Paso, and just no, plain and simple, however much may be mad here. Kathy Coterie, very much agreeing with her. Mental health matters. Absolutely. So that 988 number, there is a national network, and no call will go unanswered, but there are significant resources that have been mustered or rather transitioned even for that available here. So we'll be talking with Emergence Health Network about that, about the efforts underway now, what the groundwork was required for them, and what some of the expectations going forward from this will be. So quite the diverse day for the topics, as we almost always do here on this program. A lot of comments coming in, and we'll keep getting to those as well, including the likes and reacts. We do appreciate, again, Steve Ivy, Ted Corus, Flaca Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and more can chime in there if you want to. Again, overall on the social media, those comments, one of the better ways to chime in throughout the progression of the show. We'll have that phone line open a little bit later as we do. But in the meantime, already due for that first break of the hour right now. Time flies when you're talking about the things that truly matter as we try as much as possible to focus on here on the program. So taking that first break of the hour here right now. Again, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk, coming out of this break talking about that 988 Lifeline, what it means, how it works, and how it's working here locally. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On your El Paso traffic, that earlier crash on the I-10 West at Cotton has been cleared. All lanes are back open. Trans Mountain eastbound at Wrestler, an earlier crash there is off to the right. Police are on the scene trying to clear a crash at George Dieter northbound at Pelicano. And South Desert Boulevard continues to be closed southbound from Trans Mountain to Artcraft for roadwork. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Find yourself going through life ignoring the totals on your receipts? Oh, I can't bring myself to look. We've got your shot at $1,000 with Inflation Vacation. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The markets and financial system are out of control and impossible to understand unless you understand this. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on the Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/trial.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Another busy day as we're talking about many different subjects here, but one kind of overarching one, or one that has been very much in the news in its own right here, has been mental health services impacting many different factors of life. And there is now, if you haven't heard about it, a new resource available to everyone immediately when it comes to dealing with those issues and getting those services here. So to talk to us a little bit more about that, we are joined now by Renee Hurtado, Chief of Staff for Emergence Health Network. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Happy to do so, because mental health and the focus on it here, it's such an interesting topic, and one that we focused on a lot in our own right and many different aspects of our programming, because for such a long time, it was something that you just didn't talk about. It was the kind of, well, dirty little secret. Like you may need it, but you never talk about it because of the way the stigma around it here. So anytime you get the chance to break through that, discuss further on it, and particularly as things have become more available and, dare I say, more accepted to actually even be out front about these things, it's important to me personally to get into this here. And so that resource we are talking about, everyone, and I would be very surprised if this doesn't mean literally everyone has heard of 911, the general emergency phone number. If there is a problem, if there's something going wrong, you call 911. And now we have a companion number for when it comes specifically to crisis, mental health, and suicide as those kind of issues here. And that the new number people may have heard of, but definitely needs to be a little bit more focused on, 988, that can now be dialed nationwide, right?
That is correct. So a couple of years ago, the federal government made the decision to create a new 3-digit number specifically for mental health crisis and suicide prevention. So that was kicked off just last weekend. And here in El Paso, Emergence Health Network, as the mental health authority, which is what we are the call takers for that. So, anytime you call 24/7, 365, you're going to be able to talk to a mental health professional who will help you through your crisis or the crisis that you and your loved ones are experiencing at the time.
So again, this is, people may have been aware of other lines. Emergence Health Network has long been working on providing these kinds of services as well. And some of those other lines will still be functional, but this one, again, will now be dialable much like the regular emergency line of 911, 988, the number we're talking about here. So from y'all's end, from the way that you all are administering it, how much of a change has it been to then get on this new system and change what you all are doing?
Well, it did require some new technology to make sure that everybody was ready for the 988 changeover. But other than that, as you mentioned, it's been business as usual. We here at Emergence have had a crisis line, a suicide hotline for decades now, 779-1800. It's a number that a lot of people know here in town. That will remain operational. You can call 779-1800. You can call 988. You'll speak to the same mental health care professional. That's a good part of it, that there is going to be some continuity.
Absolutely here. So this is, again, a new effort in its own right, but in a lot of ways, and particularly here in the Borderland, capitalizing on things that have already been going on. So in the change over to this, and again, that national focus, there may have been somewhat of a conception that as a national line, it'll connect to some national center that'll talk with anyone. But this, again, is functioning. The comparison to 911 is very apt because in just about any community that you're in, if they've got the facilities to do so, you'll be connected by dialing that 988 number to a local mental health professional.
Correct. And well, a little bit of a caveat there. So the good thing is we are part of a national network. Right. That is correct. So 988 is a national program, and we are one of 4 call centers in Texas. The other ones are in Austin, Dallas, and Houston. And those calls, we're all working together. So yes, when you call 988 here from El Paso, there's a very good chance you're going to speak to someone locally. But we want no call to go unanswered, right?
Of course. So
it may roll over to another center. You might be picked up in Austin just because all of our operators are busy, as we've heard. So and again, that's the good part of it, that we are all one big part of a national movement to prevent suicides, to have folks have the access that they need to mental health care. So, but a great amount of the time you're going to be calling, it is going to be answered by the local health professionals here at Emergence, just down the street.
Absolutely. So important things here. And again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Renee Hurtado, Chief of Staff with Emergence Health Network. You want to find out anything more about them, the work they do, or again, some of these services that we'll be talking about here, of course, their website, emergencehealthnetwork.org. Again, emergencehealthnetwork.org, or again, their crisis hotline, 779-1800-915, 779-1800. So this coming online here, how long of a process has this really been to, again, for the national system, the interconnected nature of it, how long has this really been in the works?
Sure, it's been about 2 years that I said that the federal government made the investment and the decision legislatively to move forward, and it's taken some time, especially in other parts of the country. There's other parts of the country, other communities where there was no crisis line, so they had to kind of start from scratch. We fortunately did not have that problem, so we were able to very quickly kind of prepare. Like I said, it did take some tech modifications, but as I said, we're good to go, and we're good to be partnering with 911 and the rest of the first responder community as we have in the past, but just with this enhanced effort.
Yeah, with this different part of it here, because we've talked about them some previously. There have been some of the different programs, including pairing up mental health professionals with first responders in some cases, other efforts that Emergence Health Network has, of course, been a part of in its own right in those ways. But particularly with this, with making it the phone line here, were there any, besides the technology coming on board, was there any additional staffing or changes to the way that you all handle the crisis hotline as it existed in order to make the modification to this?
Not really, not from a clinical standpoint. We've been providing telephonic clinical intervention for many, many years, and that hasn't changed. We, as I said, the mental health professionals that work for Emergence are very good at what they do. They know how to help someone in crisis. They know how to de-escalate situations, and we're just going to keep doing what we do. I think it does bring about a new level of efficiency from certain aspects. For example, when you call, before, people were maybe a little panicked and said, I don't remember 779-1800. I'm going to call 911. So you can do that. Now, what happens when you call 911? You get a fire truck, you get an ambulance, and you get a cavalry going out to your place, right? Because that's what happens when you call 911. When you call 988, that's not going to happen unless there's a very specific situation where the call taker may decide, we do have to dispatch an ambulance, or we do have to dispatch someone else to help immediately. Otherwise, we're going to de-escalate the situation right on the phone. So it's a new level of efficiency to make sure that ambulances and fire trucks and police squad cars go where they really need to go.
So essentially, as opposed to, like you were saying, 911 was very much just focused on getting help to you, physical help, personnel on scene, that kind of a thing was really the idea behind it, or getting essentially a law enforcement response started in some cases. This is about providing immediate resources, communication, and like you said, a big focus on de-escalation right over the phone, one of the kind of those key differences between 911 and now 988.
Correct. So it's a cost savings to the community, right? We don't have to dispatch an expensive ambulance every single time. So it helps the person who's making the call, who's in crisis, and it helps us as taxpayers because we're reducing the usage of a very valuable resource.
So then, of course, a key question here, people may have gotten the idea about it, but when you're describing the purpose of 988 and really what is intended for the calls to go there, how do you describe what the difference is between if someone is confused besides like what might be 911 and 988, or what should rise to that level of needing to call 988?
Sure. So the true purpose, and as it's defined again by the federal government, by the folks who designed the whole infrastructure, is really anyone who has any kind of mental health crisis, or there is a person who is a danger to themselves or others. So suicide prevention, mental health crisis. That's literally the two bullet points that are outlined to where you call 988. 911 is for all other very urgent or emergent emergencies. Like I said, we will be working together. So there may be some calls that may go back and forth, but really, any kind of mental health issue, you call 988. Any other type of emergency, you call 911.
And again, some interconnectedness there even in between. So if someone's confused at all, they should definitely call one or the other and not say, well, I'm not sure if either applies, because like you're saying, there is some interconnectedness there.
Yes. The call takers at both of those lines, like I said, they're experienced professionals, and they know, what, I've got to switch this over to our friends in 988 or vice versa to make sure that ultimately people get the help they need as quickly as humanly possible.
So again, with the new options here, the very much, again, focus is on dealing with the emergencies as they're happening. Again, joining us right now to talk about this is Renee Hurtado, Chief of Staff of Emergence Health Network. To find out more about them, these programs, and other services available, again, that website, emergencehealthnetwork.org, emergencehealthnetwork.org. We're going to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, talk a little bit more about the services available, what the impacts of this line will be, and what it'll mean going forward. So stay tuned for more here on Talk El Paso, here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Las Cruces police have identified 2 suspects involved in a shooting that stemmed from an armed robbery at a home improvement store. Joshua Lopez and Miles Luciano were arrested last night after an officer-involved shooting on South Telshore Boulevard. Lopez and Luciano were leaving Lowe's Home Improvement on Main Street with a stolen portable air conditioning unit, according to police. That's when they were confronted by store employees. One of the suspects is seen on surveillance video pointing a handgun at an employee during the encounter. Lopez was shot after a brief police pursuit and is expected to recover. The Socorro Police Department now responding to a viral video that showed a Socorro police officer appearing to strike a police dog. Socorro police say that the officer had responded to a burglary. They say that the canine handler was applying affirmative redirection to the police dog. The department says this use of corrective action is in line with the training of police canines. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On your El Paso freeways, watch for slowing on I-10 westbound between Airway and Reynolds. It is an 8-minute delay right now. I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino, a truck is blocking the right lane, and tire debris is also in that right lane, all the way back to Penndale. George Dieter northbound at Pelicano, an accident with police on the scene there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. I hope you're enjoying this weather. It has been giving us somewhat of a small break as our rain chances still remain about 20 to 30% chance. We could see a little spike later on in this week, but nonetheless, we'll continue with our monsoon moisture hanging out, and that's going to keep those temperatures in the overnight hours a little cool in the lower to mid 70s with highs back in the mid 90s. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the very latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Don't drive much, don't pay much with pay-per-mile insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 and 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces is now hiring in-home caregivers. If you're kind and compassionate, then Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces may have a fun and flexible new career for you. Call 575-521-4400 today. Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces, elevating the human spirit.
With the Strawberry Frosty, time to enjoy yourself is built in. They're so rich and creamy, they're built for you to slow down, relax, and just take it all in. So when it's time for Frosty time, and Strawberry Frosty time is for a limited time, choose wisely. Choose Wendy's. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Strawberry Frosty.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or over on our social media platforms, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, but again, joining us here in studio still, we do have Rene Hurtado, the Chief of Staff with Emergence Health Network. Thank you very much for sticking around with us today.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Absolutely happy to talk about mental health issues and specifically the resources available for them, because as often as it comes up in the news and in the topics we discuss here about mental health concerns or issues or contributions to many of the situations we have even just lately been discussing here, what to then do about it is often the more important but difficult question to answer here. So we have been talking a little bit before the break, of course, about the start of the 988 system, complementary, of course, to 911, but specifically focused on mental health crisis, suicide prevention here, and of course, the local resources that are available along with it. So with it coming online here, within the last essentially couple of weeks here is when it's been fully nationally established that you can then dial it from any phone anywhere within the United States. Making that change, I'm sure, just even administratively, even if there were, a lot of resources available, the consideration of it and what's going to be needed to keep that going, I'm sure there are some thoughts about, well, there's probably going to need to be more resources because making it more available means that more people are likely to then need it and take advantage of it.
Absolutely. So yeah, you're thinking, I now have, on my cell phone, three pushes to my cell phone, and I'm talking to a mental health professional, right? Before, it didn't used to be the case. The number was a lot longer. So what that means is that we know that more people are going to be making the call. So when more people make the call, more people are going to access the system of care. So ultimately, what's going to happen over the next few years is that the entire system of care has to grow. There has to be more clinics. There have to be more therapists. There have to be more psychiatrists, because more people are going to be wanting the help just because it's more accessible to them.
Mm-hmm. So I know that there will probably be some conversation about more incidents happening, but it's also kind of they may have already been happening, but weren't actually getting responded to or know that the resources were available. So even in that kind of consideration, knowing that this is probably going to be the start of pretty much a new era of mental health treatment happening in this community and this country, focusing on the community level, of course, here when it comes to Emergence and the partner agencies that you all work with, how are you even considering that? I mean, looking at that strong possibility, what kind of groundwork needs to be laid now with the establishment of this number?
Sure thing. So, yeah, I mean, one of the goals of the program was to increase access nationally. So what does that mean? And we know it's going to increase because we know statistics show that most people with mental illness do not seek out treatment. We end up treating the sickest of the sick. There are many people suffering out there who, for whatever reason, because it's cost prohibitive, because they have stigma, whatever reason, they are not seeking the help, so they're suffering in silence. We're going to assume that 988 is going to reduce that number because most people can quickly dial those three numbers. So you're right. Having conversations with our community partners, with our fellow providers, with elected officials, with law enforcement, how do we grow the system? How do we make the system more efficient? Because we're going to have an influx of patients in some way, shape, or form in the coming months and years.
So, of course, having only been on for a couple of weeks in this system now, have you seen has there been any measurable changes, I guess would be the right way to put it, in this accessibility, or is it still at this point like a little bit too early to see what's coming?
It's a little bit too early to see. We do have some reporting mechanisms, and they're barely kicking into gear here. It's been just a couple of weeks, but I mean, the federal experts and the soothsayers out there are predicting some growth, and we wholeheartedly agree. So yes, as I said, we too soon to measure just yet. But in a couple of months, in a year, we'll be able to know more. And more importantly, in 3 to 5 years, we'll know a whole lot more about, the strategic growth of the mental health system for the entire country and here in El Paso for years and decades to come.
So then on that measuring, of course, just absolute call volume may be a very important way to look at it. But also, I mean, as you were mentioning, the severity of cases and, the way people are being then treated, because, I mean, I know it's been a figure for regular emergency response outside of the mental health aspect of it here, that oftentimes it was what happened after the emergency call was most indicative of long-term outcomes here, because one emergency call could be an outlier for someone, but in some cases it might be the start of a long process. So when we're even talking about measurements, what kind of, stats and figures are looking at or are expected to be significant as, more data becomes available with, the establishment of this line?
Right. So yeah, we're going to be looking at how many people are going to seek out long-term treatment. You may have been depressed for years and you decide to make that call. Now you're in the system. Now you are seeing a therapist. Now you're getting your daily your prescriptions on a regular basis. So there's that. Also, on the flip side, there may be some cost savings. Before, if you weren't on a regular regimen, you might wait until you're in crisis, and guess where you're going to go? You're going to go to the emergency room, which is the most expensive place to access care. So hopefully more people will access care in a regular outpatient basis. You're going to go to the doctor just like you go to if you have blood pressure, high blood pressure or diabetes, you're on your meds, you're watching your diet, you're taking care of yourself. That's what you need to be doing on the mental health side of things as well. So hopefully it'll reduce crisis calls, very expensive crisis interventions, and increase the number of regular wellness checks and going to your regular doctor as opposed to showing up at 3 a.m. in an emergency room with a very expensive bill after that.
Again, joining us in here in studio is Renee Hurtado, Chief of Staff with Emergence Health Network, talking about the establishment of that national crisis, mental health, and suicide prevention hotline 988. If you want to find out more details about what they are doing here locally, including these efforts and a whole lot more, emergencehealthnetwork.org. That is emergencehealthnetwork.org. So yeah, that aspect of it afterwards. Of course, we're focusing a lot on the immediate availability, what can happen immediately. And we've talked about some of those other programs that have already been in place. Of course, like you mentioned, the crisis intervention teams, which we've had previously on the program and discussed that. So really that's, I think, one of the bigger questions here is what happens after the call. So a call is able to de-escalate a situation, allow it to be, as much as successful applies in this case, be resolved here. What is then the long-term part of it? What then comes after a call, essentially?
Right. So, one of the things that happen in the mental health field, you hear the word diversion a lot. You want to divert people from inappropriate placement. It used to, we're getting better, but it used to be that, you went into a mental health crisis, someone called 911, an officer showed up, saw the situation and said, this person needs to be taken in. They end up in jail. Person that does not need to be in jail because they have untreated mental illness. So again, very expensive jail stay. They get, as I said, to an emergency room or a hospital, they get admitted. Very expensive way to treat a preventable problem. So we are trying to divert people from inappropriate placement from where they do not need to be. They do not need to be sitting in an emergency room next to a child with asthma. They need to be stabilized, provided some meds, provided with a follow-up and appointment to a psychiatrist, so then that crisis never happens again. So that's what we're hoping ultimately. That's one of the goals of the mental health system. That's one of the goals of Emergence when we see patients in crisis.
So the idea of then diversion, and so essentially getting them, as much as there's been a focus on where, again, for 911 calls, making it where it is if there's longer term things needed. There's been a focus on, social work availability and things like that for particularly people who end up in situations where they're on that line a lot here. Very much kind of built into it with the 988 calls, that on focusing on that, okay, this is not just a kind of a one and done as maybe thought of otherwise, but the start of a process.
Right. And ultimately also the other portion of the mission is, of course, suicide prevention.
Of course.
So as we know, suicide prevention, I think nationally, you look at different surveys, it's about the 10th leading cause of death in adults. The second leading cause of death in kids is when folks take their own lives. So we want to reduce that. And unlike other unlike other disease processes, cancer rates are going down, heart attack rates are going down. Guess what? Suicide rates are going up. So we're trying to make sure that people do not complete the act of suicide, that people get the clinical help that they need. And there's a lot to do then in that area. And it's a multifaceted approach. You talk to schools, you talk to businesses, you talk to law enforcement, all those institutions play a part in suicide prevention in our community. And that's partly what we want to be doing with 988 is just grow the focus on suicide prevention.
Absolutely. And here, again, as that number is now live across the country, a whole lot more focus being done on that, and a whole lot more talk we'll hopefully be doing about that as well. So again, joining us in here in studio, our guest right now has been Renee Hurtado, Chief of Staff with Emergence Health Network. Again, we'll find out anything about their work or, again, the resources available through them and, again, through the 988 National Mental Health Crisis and Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can find them online, emergencehealthnetwork.org, emergencehealthnetwork.org, or, again, 988, the number that can be dialed anywhere in the country now. So, Renee, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about what is available, the resources, and the things behind it here today.
Anytime, Andrew. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for talking with us about that. We got to go ahead and take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll open up those phone lines as we do at this point during the show. So if you want to chime in at your 2 cents, of course, comments over on the social media, but that phone line now available, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Freeway slow on the I-10 westbound this afternoon before Airway to Reynolds with an 8-minute delay. I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino, right lane is blocked from tire debris. On Gateway westbound east of Lee Trevino, a disabled truck is blocking the right lane. And southbound on the Loop Memorial Freeway at Iron Medics, a stalled vehicle blocking the right side. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If summer is heating up your hiring needs, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Sponsor your first job and get hiring today by visiting Indeed.com/credit.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. If you've enjoyed our incredible public lands throughout the country this summer, show some love for these spaces and participate in a volunteer cleanup event on National Public Lands Day in your area. National Public Lands Day is the nation's largest single-day volunteer event for public lands and is on September 24th. Learn more and find an event near you at nefusa.org/NPLD. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
When it comes to mixing drugs, you may think you have a safe approach, but the bottom line is, mixing drugs is never safe. It can cause serious health problems like a heart attack or brain damage. Learn more at cdc.gov/stop-overdose.
For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and the biggest inventory on in-stock vinyl windows. And now the Window Depot is more than a window store, offering homeowners and contractors a one-stop warehouse full of interior and exterior doors, granite and quartz countertops, in-stock cabinetry, and flooring and tile to finish your project. Their team of professionals will help with everything from free kitchen design to custom orders from leading manufacturers like Milgard and Geldwin. Order online or find a location near you at thewindowdepot.com.
With the strawberry frosty, time to enjoy yourself is built in. They're so rich and creamy. They're built for you to slow down, relax, and just
Superior Multifamily Property Management Services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, mainly under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on the four main platforms. We got Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, so search us up under those. A lot of comments coming in over on the social media. Interesting perspectives going on here, and we do at least entertain most of them anyway. So if you want to add your 2 cents, you can do that, but we also have that phone line open now, of course. That number to call is 915-544 KTSM is Edgar Ortiz letting us know he's on board, and some other conversations going on, such as John Brazelton mentioning that rain was going on over in his neck of the wood near Hawkins. Only lasted 10 minutes, but Calvin Williams actually saying we had a hail and a flash flood right now. We have a 4-inch river flowing in front of his house. That sounds, hope you're staying safe over there. I mean, that weather keeps swirling around out here. So, again, thank you to our guest from this hour, Renee Hurtado, the Chief of Staff with Emergence Health Network, because the establishment of that line and making it more accessible to people, I think, is probably a pretty important step going forward. Now, I mean, there's definitely going to be some changes, and Jay Visconti expressing some skepticism here, saying that this mental health movement has a history. Early 1900s, countless thousands were committed to asylums. Caller beware, another way to silence free-thinking free people. I'm going to draw a pretty stark line between modern mental health practices and what happened in asylums back in the 1900s. I don't think that's an unfair line to be drawn either, particularly since part of the idea previously was, well, anyone essentially undesirable in society, whether they be infirm, mentally unsound, etc., just lock them away, and that's the idea of it, or essentially that the insane can only be criminals. I mean, even those kinds of phrasing sounds very out of place these days. So another question that did come up about that, Kathy asked, do they have any mental health facilities for inpatient treatment? Yes, in short. There are a variety of different clinics they may have mentioned, inpatient, outpatient, in-home. I mean, there are many programs and many different ways. I mean, calling mental health treatment, treating it as just like a subset of healthcare would be kind of a misnomer, because there are as many different avenues of treatment within the entire umbrella of mental health care these days. That's is pretty much its own serious thing. The Calvin one is asking if we can call. You can call 988 for just about any reason, but let's just say, just like calling 911, if you're not doing it for a good reason, you may have other consequences. I don't know if there's actually consequences like a prank call to 911, but I'm just going to put it in the same order of magnitude. Doing either is probably a bad idea. Just saying there. But also, I know there was a little bit tongue-in-cheek of the idea of mental health help for veterans is the phrase I was trying to say. But let me just put it in perspective this way. Given that figure that I guarantee you all have heard of, if you listen to this or any other real station, been paying attention, that 22 a day, that statistic that is often put up as the example of how many veterans, prior service members, etc., end up committing suicide every day here in the United States. And yes, the VA, I mean, is supposed to provide treatment and such here, as Kathy also asked, but there have been perennial issues. And I know there are some talk about the differences between administrations here, but seriously, there's been across administrations, because I have some very direct friends who have had very direct troubles regardless of who is sitting in the White House, because it's often been a difficulty for them. So my perspective on this is that the idea of there being greater help, more availability, something to reach out to, if it can do any work on that 22 a day number, I'm going to find myself in favor of it more often than not here. John Brazelton with more of maybe a philosophical question here. Is it better to lock up people rather than having them living homeless on the city streets? Let's just say getting people help is probably a good thing, but just saying, and therefore just lock them up, I'm probably going to go with a no on that one. But the idea of helping them, and particularly veterans, considering that there are a lot of overlap in those populations, I think is probably a good thing. And why anything that is making it more accessible, more available, more knowledgeable so that people can know about it and do it, probably something that we need more of in this country here, given all the discussion we have about mental health and its impacts in many aspects of many news stories we have discussed here. Of course, I've said that phone line is open as not to be made a liar. We do have a couple calls coming in on the line here right now, so let's get to at least one of those. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Oh, Marco from Central.
Hey there, Marco. What's on your mind?
Oh, man, you always catch me off guard. All right. How have you been?
Doing all right
been
there.
Pretty good.
Good to hear.
Well, the reason I'm calling is because of our First Amendment, freedom of association and expression.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, reading about, the potential indictment of Donald Trump. And I was like, and I was thinking to myself, man, like the justice system right now is so upside down. And I'm not saying that it's upside down just because I'm a Republican. I mean, it is upside down because they're literally doing things that you just should not be doing in the Justice Department. And they'll tell you, this is what's so evil about this administration. You'll look at them. Hey, man, we have 2 quarters of downturn in our economy. We're in a recession. No, we're not. That's not a recession. Here, let me read you the definition of a recession. 2 quarters of downturn on the economy equals a recession. No. You're reading it wrong. And it's like, man, this is straight up 1984 in your face. Like, this is I know there'll be people that talk about conspiracy theories and stuff. This is a straight up psyop in your face. Agree with what we tell you, or you're not part of our movement. So, like, all these Democrats, they'll sit there and you'll be like, hey, describe a woman. Oh, well, a woman's a birthing person, a woman's a... They can't even tell you. And they know, but the movement is so much more important. The ideology is so much more important. This is why I said it last time. I cannot take the Democrats serious on anything now. Because if they're willing to lie to you, one of the new ones is when you're going to breastfeed, it's no longer breastfeeding. It's man boob juice or something like that now that they want you to call it, like straight up. They don't want you to call it breastfeeding because you associate that with a woman immediately. You say, oh, breastfeeding, obviously you're a woman. No. You're wrong. You're looking at the world at a completely different view. And you're like, no, I'm looking at it through the natural perspective of existence. You're lying to me and trying to change my perspective on existence. You're literally manipulating my reality by telling me things that they're not. And it hasn't just started recently. It's been going on for years. I mean, look, I'll tell you this, and I'll just say it out loud. During the Obama years, I was placed, as embarrassing as it is, I was placed on the terrorist watch list because I gave money to an organization in Texas called Hatari, which is a bunch of officers. This is the quality of people that we have in America. Hatari, who are ex-officers, law enforcement, got together to give money to the kids who were killed in Waco to build them a memorial. That's why I was put on a terrorist watch list. Literally, I couldn't fly. There was a lot of things I couldn't leave the city. At one point, I had an ankle bracelet on. Like, it was ridiculous. I would tell you the attorney that I had at the time, but I don't want to put him in the spot. But man, he did a great job just trying to get me off, and it was insane. And so, now all these years later, I'm not being persecuted, but I look at someone like Donald Trump, and I'm like, man, you have all the money in the world, and that can't even. I had no money. I had a little lonely restaurant, and man, the prosecution was hard. This guy has the world coming down on him. And he said it best the other day. He could go away, live life in opulence, and the persecution of Donald Trump would end. But the reason they persecute him is because they persecute you, me, the people who believe in the Constitution, the people who believe in America, freedoms, your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, your Third, who believe in this country for Pete's sake. They look at you as the enemy.
Tell you what, this is an important discussion. I want to continue it, but we've got to take that break for the top of the hour right now. So we'll be back right after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The market is shrugging off the second straight negative GDP report. This is usually a sign that the economy is in a recession, but investors take it as a hint that the Federal Reserve will slow down with hiking interest rates. Meantime, earnings reports continue to roll in, with Apple beating expectations on revenue and profit. Tomorrow's Mega Millions jackpot is now the second largest in the game's history. It stands at $1.1 billion. The record prize, worth just over $1.5 billion, was won in October 2018. A new study shows millions of people have yet to regain their sense of taste and smell after recovering from COVID-19.
Published in the Medical Journal of the British Medical Association, the analysis determined about 5%, or roughly 27 million people who reported losing their sense of taste or smell, were still dealing with those symptoms after 6 months. The researchers did note that most people recover their senses within a few months. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The man accused of attacking New York Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin is going to stay behind bars until more is known about his mental health. The attack happened a week ago while Zeldin was giving a speech at a VFW post outside of Rochester. David Jacobonis faced a judge today while his attorney said he's a mentally scarred war veteran with a drinking problem who suffers from severe anxiety and a panic disorder. The Biden administration is attempting to maintain good relations with China through a lengthy phone call this morning with President Xi Jinping. From the White House, spokesman John Kirby talked about the call and the future.
No, I don't think there was a date in the future for another conversation, but they did agree that they need to keep these lines of communication open, and they did agree to keep talking.
President Biden spoke with his Chinese counterpart about climate change and health security. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The former Treasury Secretary under President Trump will meet with the House January 6th committee. ABC reported the panel will question Steve Mnuchin, particularly about conversations among White House officials at the time about potentially invoking the 25th Amendment after the attack. It states the vice president takes over if the president is removed from office. More monkeypox vaccines are coming to New York. Lisa G. reports.
According to New York Senator Charles Schumer, 786,000 more vaccines are coming to the U.S., and New York City will get around 10% of them, or around 80,000 doses, while New York State will get 30,000 vaccines. The amount for each region of vaccines is based on the number of cases and its high-risk population. Meantime, Governor Murphy of New Jersey sent a letter to federal officials saying they don't believe New Jersey has been sent an equitable percentage of the vaccine.
Netflix is dropping the first trailer for its Marilyn Monroe biopic, Blonde.
Miss Monroe, it's time.
The film will tell the story of Monroe's life from her childhood all the way through her rise to stardom. The supporting cast includes Bobby Cannavale, Adrian Brody, Julianne Nicholson, and Evan Williams. The trailer shows Monroe speaking to her struggles of having to live in the limelight and talking to Cannavale's character, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. Blonde will release on Netflix on September 28th. I'm Michael Kastner.
A rare dinosaur skeleton is selling for more than $6 million at an auction at Sotheby's. The 76-million-year-old Gorgosaurus, which is a cousin of the T-Rex, was found in Montana in 2018. It's nearly 10 feet tall and 22 feet long. It's also the first time a complete skeleton of its type has come up for public auction. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bonus. That's bonus. Enter it now.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th. Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
Stream it free on the CW app and CWTV.com.
Having the time of your life is more rewarding than ever when you visit any of the MGM resorts nationwide. With MGM Rewards, dine, stay, play, and earn on all of it. Get details at MGMRewards.com. Subject to earning and redemption limitations applicable to certain purchases and in certain states.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
New on Curiosity Stream. Have researchers figured out a mathematical formula for success?
A clearer understanding of how success happens could lead us to change the rules.
Gain a new perspective on getting ahead. It's Science of Success. And the U.S. won the space race, but not without help from the Nazis.
They were just years ahead of us.
Meet NASA's rocket scientists of the Third Reich on the moon landing and the Nazis. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Keepers Las Cruces is now hiring. Call 575-521-4400.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends,
for my community,
for everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got an injury accident reported Gateway North at Paisano Drive. I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino. Right lane is blocked for some tire debris, and there's a vehicle off right. An accident reported Viscount eastbound at Airway Boulevard, and we still got stop-and-go traffic on the 10 westbound before Airway to Reynolds with an 8-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk, a lot of comments, commentary, and commenters coming in over on those, including Calvin Williams, RJ, Kathy Codry, John Brazelton, Ian Grimm, Louis Pinato, Edgar Ortiz, and more. And let's just say we don't shy away from the hard topics and the discussion. Sometimes we run out of time at the top of the hours here. But if you wanted to get on the line here, we are, of course, having those phone lines open throughout the rest of the second hour of the program here as we do. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner, Steve Ivy, Ted Kors, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Louis Pinato. Just helps with those algorithmic things. Talking about a few things here today, including mental health and, well, the many interesting discussions that end up branching off of that, specifically in reference to the services and availability of them through that new national 988 mental health crisis and suicide prevention lifeline. So remember it just as you would 911 these days, because you can dial it from any phone here in the U.S. and get connected to usually local, but otherwise mental health resources available to you and what to do next, those kind of things. So a lot of conversations going on about reality there as well, and help therein, and also the economy. I mean, really, we got a lot of things affecting us here in the borderland, and we delve into them as we continue to do so. So let's go ahead and get back on those phone lines now and keep talking about those many important things. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, speaking of mental health, I think the country has gone crazy. And I mean, there are some really, really crazy people in this country, like the people who attacked the Capitol. That was really, really crazy to do that. Donald Trump is a crazy guy. He says crazy things, and he's done crazy things. And now the news is that his former Secretary of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, from the swamp, a swamp creature from Goldman Sachs, who Trump demonized while on the campaign. And then he drained those swamp creatures right into his administration. So Steve Mnuchin now is talking to the committee about invoking the 25th Amendment right after the attack. So again, if you were thinking of invoking the 25th Amendment, it's because the president is incapacitated mentally or physically in some sorts, something really bad that, you might do after the president incites a coup on Congress at the Capitol. And now it's going to be investigated. It's all going to come out now. Now it's in the judicial system. Now it's in the courts. Now they'll have to produce real evidence. Now we'll have the witnesses. And Donald Trump reeks of coup, like he reeked of Putin also.
All right. Well, I mean, of course, as always, you're entitled to your opinion on that. But the idea of it, I mean, honestly, can you really say to me with a straight face that if these things that were truly backing up what you were talking about were to have come out, were available, say, to the January 6th committee, which again, some of the committee heads and leadership going on there were saying that we even have more information than is available to, say, the DOJ, that it wouldn't have come out already. I mean, given that this was entirely an activity in the court of public opinion is really where this was being tried, if you want to, again, apply the terminology of trials in courtrooms as often is, even if it is entirely inaccurate for the forum and format in which this was being provided, that you really think that it wouldn't have come out there? That's why I am still very interested in a full investigation, finding out all the answers. I don't care which sacred cows end up getting ground into ground beef by the process here. Find the actual events, planning, everything that happened with it, and let's put it into a report. Let's make it visible and make it something that can be actionable on, because otherwise I do not feel that which I've been calling for this entire time has been achieved as of yet. So if there's an investigation, I mean, the rumors are circulating. I mean, there's the whole we don't comment on pending investigation kind of stuff is probably going to be up for a while here. And while there is much excitement on those that are of the similar mindset to you of here, I will remain with a not exactly bated breath, but waiting to see what actually comes out of it here. So thank you very much for the point in the call, I guess. Let's move on to another call here. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I've been out of town, but I did manage to hear one of your shows. And I want to respond to Frankie and possibly Raul.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if Raul was included in this, but anyway, it goes to the two of them. So Frankie called in and was excited with a Hutchison. They thought she was it. She was going to bring the president down. She said that the president demanded to go to the Capitol after the rally, that he attempted to overtake the vehicle in which he was in, and shortly thereafter, two security agents, Secret Service agents, said that they were ready to testify that didn't happen. Now her private text come out where she's actually calling the committee a phony, that it's a phony committee. And she said that she didn't have anything to add to the committee. And she also made this statement that she would rather shoot herself dead than to see Marine One flying over the city without President Trump. So she's been pretty well discredited by her own texts. And so I was listening, and this is for Frankie, because he said we just listen to the entertainment channels to get the news.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to PBS a few months ago, and I was listening to an interview with Frank Luntz, a pollster, who is by no means a friend of the president. And he made some really sharp statements, I thought. One, he said that Trump could not have known what was going to happen after the rally. And because he was at the rally, he said that even Trump supporters were surprised as to what was happening. They couldn't believe it. But the last takeaway that I took is he said the worst thing Trump did, he said he should have known, and I'm quoting, "It's not what you say, it's what they heard." It's great if we could pre-plan everything, what we're going to say, and then anticipate what the reaction is going to be so we could get a specific outcome, right? But that's not reality. That's not life. So based on that, my question is, if Trump is in fact guilty, according to Raul and Frankie, of causing a riot that he didn't foresee, then why aren't Pelosi, Schumer, and Bowser guilty of not stopping a riot they didn't foresee, but at minimum, they knew President Trump was concerned about it, so concerned that he would sign an authorization for the deployment of troops, and they did nothing with it. They were asked several times if they wanted the troops, and they declined them. So now, after 2 impeachments, the Mueller investigation, the January 6th committee, and let's not forget the Durham investigation, because that's going on, they want to burn millions more dollars of our money on the DOJ investigating the president. Well, we know from what we've heard recently that the DOJ and the FBI are corrupt within the top ranks. We have FBI agents now coming out stating that the FBI shut down investigations on Hunter Biden's laptop in 2020 because they wanted the president. They wanted Biden as a president. So why would we trust anything coming out from the DOJ? They both withheld critical information from the laptop, saying it was Russian disinformation. That's what they said then. But now they're saying that President Biden, that the laptop is genuine and verifiable. So I don't understand how they think that we could even think of trusting the DOJ. I mean, why don't we redirect our money to an honest Hunter Biden investigation so we can determine whether or not our president is compromised because of Hunter, so that we can understand why he would sell 390,000 barrels of oil to China through a company that Hunter Biden is associated with? Or why is he releasing another 20 million barrels and some going to China? So these are the questions we need to know about our president. We need to know why CFIUS, through his administration, is allowing China to purchase 300 acres of a valuable farmland. Not only is it valuable, but it's within 20 minutes of an Air Force base that has highly sensitive intellectual property. And they have our drones, of all things, drones that they work on, and they have the intellectual property there. That's why spending our money on the DOJ and the FBI that you cannot trust. Parents are terrorists. The DOJ now has I think it's called a Parents Commission. But you can't have any Republicans on it, and all those in the commission are donors for Biden. And they've already had several meetings, and that came in after the disinformation board that was dismantled. So this is what we learned after the fact, and Frankie and Raul expect us to trust a corrupt, their deep state. I guess that's what we can call them now, because the DOJ and the FBI we've known are not honest entities, and they're not unbiased. They are actually now political arms of the Biden administration, which they're not supposed to be. So I don't watch my news through an entertainment channel, Frankie. I actually watch other stations. PBS is nowhere conservative. So let's all get our facts right. Let's all be honest with each other. Let's all do our research. Now they're putting their hopes on Mnuchin. I mean, when he falls through, who's next? Kevin McCarthy? The list will go on and on and on. They need to quit putting their hopes on the next person that the committee calls up, or, there's going to come out useless.
I mean, I've said for a minute now, besides the whole would love to see an actual investigation, because yes, questions about who knew what, when, who took what actions. I know there have been some questions about, did Pelosi actually know? Did she not? Those are the kind of questions and answers I would love to get from an actual investigation. But that's also, I mean, a few tactical errors we've discussed here off and on I know January 6th is probably going to keep cropping up as much as it's not totally a normal focus outside of Friday, but I also fully understand that the committee on it is very, very much in the mindset. So here's what I have to say on that specifically. That I think was somewhat of a tactical error on the part of national Republicans by essentially protesting but not still having a presence on the committee, because that is how one of the factors that has allowed it to proceed as it does without even any of the objections coming in during it, or saying that down votes or no votes or vociferous objections to the way it's proceeding, those kind of things. But if there is truly something that essentially national Democrats are pinning their hopes on for November, really November, which is the reason that the timeline has been going on about the way these hearings are going on, is all very much towards looking at that. That's not even really particularly, controverted. It's pretty obvious is what I'm trying to say. And so if that is the sum total of the hopes for what they're going to do with that, saying, well, these guys, everyone that we've painted here is so awful, how can you possibly vote for them? Just because someone may not like them, you may not like the other people, doesn't mean they're necessarily going to then vote for you. It's not, for voters, it's never usually a lesser of two evils consideration. Like, I don't like this guy, therefore I'm going to vote for you. Sometimes it can be, but I don't think it's going to work out for you this way. So that's why, among other things, whenever we do talk about these big issues and how they affect us here in the Borderland, we try to focus on the policy. Because if we're not focusing on the policy and instead we're focused on sideshows, political maneuverings, what the latest statements, there's a reason we kind of don't delve into those usually, for the most part, is because they're sideshows. They're distractions from what are you actually doing? Because if you're not talking about what you're actually doing, like, say, this CHIPS legislation, which, again, surprisingly bipartisan, given the divisions we're otherwise been discussing here, it ends up being very much a look over here, the sleight of hand kind of trick here. The look over here, don't pay attention, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of idea. So, yes, the things coming out here, and simply to your question about what should be prioritized about being investigated, honestly, the answer should probably be both. The federal government is definitely big enough to be able to handle such a thing, and getting to the bottom of all these things would be, I think, very useful. So, we'll keep talking about these things here. So, tell you what, we got to take that next break now. So, I appreciate the point in the call. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more calls in the line, more of the comments, more of all the things that we do as we continue our mission to keep talking about the things that affect us here in the Borderlands. So, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got an injury accident reported Gateway North at Paisano Drive. I-10 westbound at Lee Trevino. Right lane is blocked for some tire debris, and there's a vehicle off right. An accident reported Viscount eastbound at Airway Boulevard, and we still got stop-and-go traffic on the 10 westbound before Airway to Reynolds with an 8-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples is your one-stop travel prep destination. Right now, when you purchase any travel service like passport photos, you can get 20% off your store purchase. In-store only. Offer N731. See staples.com/travel for details and exclusions. Get travel ready at Staples, the working and learning store.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic, but if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply. Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text FLASH to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text SLASH to 321-321. That's slash to 321-321.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today, and many issues we're getting into, including, of course, mental health services, availability in our community, and the new resources available for it. The economy, that's definitely ever so slightly coming up here. The CHIPS Act, what the impacts it could have, fairly statewide, I mean, nationally as well, but if there could be things coming from that locally as well. So, and also migrant busing, essentially state political protests over the national immigration policy. Yeah, just a whole lot to get to here. A lot of people chiming in on here as well, including Kathy Codry, Flaco Jimenez, Louis Pinato, James Ratcliffe, Ted Kors, RJ, and more, Jay Visconti as well. So if you want to drop one of those likes or reacts that some are doing also over there on the social media, Ion Grimm, Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner, Steve Ivy, Ted Kors, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Jay Visconti, and Louis Pinato. Well, we appreciate it, but also your comments. And, of course, those phone lines open right now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Ted Kors bringing up the point of on the January 6th committee that Republicans were not allowed to seek their own selection on the committee. I mean, there was some protest going on with it. Let's not say that there wasn't a little bit of political maneuvering on that's own part. And a way to, I mean, that's the way it was talked about immediately after that, saying that, and therefore it's illegitimate, but it didn't exactly stop the committee either. So I don't think the point of the committee was really to lead to charges. If they do come out of it, I'll be, again, frankly, a little bit surprised, as I've expressed previously. But that's why, again, think it was a bit of a tactical error not to even get anyone really of, well, besides Liz Cheney. Let's just be honest with you. And Liz Cheney having her own very much trials and tribulations whenever it comes to her own party lately. I mean, I'll call that a tactical error in the same measure of the way that if all the hopes are being put on to it by National Democrats, maybe at the same level, but definitely a grave level of mistake coming here. But Louis Pinato, maybe we're operating on a different understanding of the word policy, saying policy means nothing, actions are what's count. When I say policy, whenever it comes to lawmakers, I'm talking about what are they actually putting into law, therefore the voting actions that they take here. So when I say policy, I don't just mean policy statements, what they say they're going to do, but rather what are they actually doing. So when we're talking about people getting elected, we have to go with, of course, their pronouncements. What are they actually wanting to do? But by getting down into policy, it's beyond just everything should be better. I want things to be better, and that's why you should vote for me. That's, an objectively fine statement. Like, yes, we want things to be better, but how are you going to do it is the very much more interesting question for us here. So when I'm talking about policy, that's when we're generally meaning here about, yes, what are they actually going to, what actions are they actually planning or are, when they're elected, taking? That's why we get into that among other things here. But some other questions coming in, including about the strategic oil reserves and those kind of things here. Flacamena saying wish Democrats would focus on going after real criminals, such as ones that are attacking cops and looting stores. We also had some talk off and on about reality and what is important there. And at least one previous caller today, I think, mentioned the idea of ideology and, party first kind of thing. Anyone, I don't care who, what stripe, flavor that they are professing to be, saying that they are putting party ahead of country, that's you very uninterested me in ever voting for you again in the future here. And I think that, writ more large on the idea of what are you actually putting into place? Is it good for you, good for your continued placement in that office, or good for the country? And I think we've also gotten more than a little bit away from that. But in any case, it goes back to those phone lines. Again, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM is the number to call there. We do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. I just wanted to ask what you thought about this. What would be a better use of taxpayer money? Continuing the investigation of the Democratic clown show, or this, which I heard on Jake Tapper, the lead, yesterday. Chinese-made cellular tech could disrupt U.S. nuclear arsenal. Back in the days of the Obama administration, the FBI looked into some cell towers that were using Chinese-made Huawei equipment that were being used in Nebraska and Colorado near areas of sensitive military information and nuclear silos. The FBI found out that this equipment had the capability to disrupt our defense system, our deployment of nuclear weapons, and the FCC in 2019 told these companies operating the towers to rip out the equipment and start all over again. Now, the program is called Rip and Replace, but Congress only appropriated $2 billion. And now it's to reimburse these companies. But now the FCC is saying that this is $3 billion short of what is needed. So far, nothing is being done about this. Now, we're talking about national defense, serious national defense problem. And we can't come up with $5 billion to make it to where we can defend ourselves. Instead, we send $85 billion to Ukraine. We spend $8 or $9 billion on the clown show. Which one do you think is better for use of our taxpayer money, would you say?
I mean, in general, I definitely agree with you. The idea of national defense, one of those clearly enumerated, if not active, parts of the preamble of the Constitution, purposes of the federal government should be very much the cause. The focus there, I mean, brass tacks moment. I mean, the January 6th committee is expected to spend on the order of about $10 million. So not exactly a one or other argument, but priority. A priority I'll give you. The other one should probably be more prioritized. I mean, Huawei and a lot of major Chinese tech firms have been not exactly banned, but severely curtailed, actually banned in some cases for a while now when it comes to telecoms. I mean, anytime there's been that kind of movement, including, the major contracts for port maintenance that have come up every so often as other foreign companies and foreign-owned companies have been focused on, lead to often reactions, but these things are, of course, happening all the time, that there's movement on these things and movement on changing the way it is. I mean, when you really start getting into cell tower stuff and the security or lack thereof in it, it's a very interesting picture to paint. And yeah, I did see that story coming out from your mention there with Jake Tapper, and the idea that essentially some of that equipment could affect targeting and, reliability of the systems. Yes, in simple terms, this is important and should be more focused on than, I'm hard pressed to think of many more priorities I would put up there with it. And there being more funding necessary for it. Again, we're kind of coming back to that reality conversation about, sure, you can focus on what you think is advantageous to you, your political beliefs, your political party often as much as you want. But if you're ignoring the actual impacting things, I don't think that a lot of people out there necessarily always buy it. I mean, there's the whole phrase, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time. The phrase is a little more involved in that. And I think that at a certain point, if you're only working on fooling or distracting, sleight of hand, etc., and saying, no, this is the most important political debate right now, as opposed to doing substantive things, even if people don't inherently recognize it. Like, they're not saying like, well, your votes on this issue over the last couple of years, like doing that kind of meta-analysis on what you're actually focusing on. They get a sense of it that like, well, it doesn't seem like you're doing anything like really impacting lately. What the hell's going on?
Anybody out there that is listening to this, pass it on to other people. Call your congressman. Tell them that you want to, you know about the rip and replace program, and you think that should be fully funded. $5 billion is not, that's a drop in the bucket in the national economy. And everything, the way we're spending money, we might as well print up $5 billion. We can print up $5 billion tomorrow, and take care of our country instead. And but do call your congressman, do call your senator, tell them that you want this funded. Rip and replace, and let's go, Brandon.
Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. You have a good one there.
You too. Take care. Stay well. Stay safe. God bless.
You as well there. So tell you what, we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of those calls on the line, more of the comments, some that have come up here, including some of the CYA discussion that very much are a part of it here. Again, if you want to get on the line, either social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, or that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. Las Cruces police have identified 2 suspects involved in a shooting that stemmed from an armed robbery at a home improvement store. Joshua Lopez and Miles Luciano were arrested last night after an officer-involved shooting on South Telshore Boulevard. Lopez and Luciano were leaving Lowe's Home Improvement on Main Street with a stolen portable air conditioning unit, according to police. That's when they were confronted by store employees. One of the suspects is seen on surveillance video pointing a handgun at an employee during the encounter. Lopez was shot after a brief police pursuit and is expected to recover. The Socorro Police Department now responding to a viral video that showed a Socorro police officer appearing to strike a police dog. Socorro police say that the officer had responded to a burglary. They say that the canine handler was applying affirmative redirection to the police dog. The department says this use of corrective action is in line with the training of police canines. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Still moving slow on the I-10 westbound from Airway past the 54 Patriot to Chelsea with 5-minute delays. Border Highway westbound at Fonseca. 2 right lanes are blocked there from road debris. A disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Border Highway eastbound at the 54 Gateway Patriot. Tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. on the 10 eastbound, the right lane and exit ramp is going to be closed from Reynolds to Paisano. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. I hope you're enjoying this weather. It has been giving us somewhat of a small break as our rain chances still remain about 20 to 30% chance. We could see a little spike later on in this week, but nonetheless, we'll continue with our monsoon moisture hanging out, and that's going to keep those temperatures in the overnight hours a little cool in the lower to mid 70s with highs back in the mid 90s. Log on to kfoxtv.com for the very latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Red Pilled America is the storytelling show that is saving our culture. This week we answer the question, do illegal aliens commit less crime than American citizens? Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus CTNL. 0 APR is $1,667 and 2.9% APR is $1,515 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you Monday through Friday 4 to 6 p.m. and let's talk El Paso.
Wendy's knows everyone hates cold and soggy fries, so they changed theirs to serve them up hot and crispy all day every day using only natural cut skin-on fries prepared to golden goodness and perfectly sprinkled with sea salt. Try Wendy's hot and crispy fries today at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Hot and Crispy Fries.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the program, particularly at this point during the show when we do have that phone line open and available, of course. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in, of course, over on the socials, which are up throughout each and every program, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on those platforms. Search us up on whichever one you're most active on. If you can't find us, let us know. Always looking and interested in going out to other places, even if some aren't totally available yet. Yes, we've heard about the Truth Social Network. No, they're not really doing that kind of thing the same way over there. So those are the four major ones we focus on right now to be out there in all the ways to make it accessible and available to y'all in our continued mission to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland and talk about the issues important to you. And speaking of which, I had realized I'd promised to look it up here, but didn't have it quite yet, if only because John Brazelton asked about it, where the Beto Drive for Texas is, of course, talking about Robert Francis. Beto O'Rourke, the Democrat nominee for the Texas governorship, and that continuing on. Fred Marcus asking if I'm on MySpace. Not for better part of a decade. Gosh, I have no idea when I finally deleted my MySpace, but probably should have marked it down as a mildly celebratory event in there. I don't think they do that kind of thing. Didn't they rebrand as essentially a musician sharing page? Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that there are some very fond and dark memories of that era of my youth. Anyway, so short answer, no, and with a little bit of a shudder in there as well. But again, just because the question was asked and I meant to go back to it, it does look like the O'Rourke campaign is in Pittsburgh, Texas today, which I definitely had to look up, having never been there myself. Essentially about halfway between Dallas and the eastern border of Texas here, according to the Googles and Wikipedia, known as the birthplace of Cavender's Boot City. So there you go. I mean, part of that whole 49-day thing coming up here. So, I mean, just because it was asked, and I mean, those issues continue to develop. Matt Olson referring to MySpace as the cyber ghetto. The way sometimes people treated their pages, maybe that works out. The whole loading a page being blasted by someone's badly clipped MIDI audio. Oh, you're giving me flashbacks here. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And getting back to the topic of your guest.
Absolutely, yes.
Mental health issues. one of the most critical points of an individual who is going through a mental health crisis is not only the crisis itself, but that person can have a propensity for suicide.
Yeah, I mean, the whole danger to themselves or others, because I mean, really, when it reaches that critical state, as it can often do whenever, well, at least previously, when 911 would often get involved, it's often far beyond what, well, otherwise other methods might be available. So yeah, it's calling it critical is almost an understatement.
Yes, and that was going to be my next point. Danger to themselves and to somebody else. Also, one of the most trying stages is a person who has a dual diagnosis, and that is an individual who has a mental health issue and a substance abuse problem. That is very, very difficult for an individual who is trained in that, and also police officers to deal with. I mean, it takes special training in that area.
It really does, and that's why, among other things, we have had that crisis intervention team pilot program been going in our area, and we've talked about that previously as well, because that's an important potential step in what I see is anyway the right direction of being able to deal with this. I mean, there's the whole phrase: if you go to a barber, you got your haircut. If all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So there being more tools available for different types of responses sounds pretty important to me.
Yes. In Texas, TCOL has a 40-hour course. It's called the Mental Health Peace Officer. And what that does is it provides advanced crisis intervention training to peace officers throughout the state.
That's a good thing to know here. And I know that, again, it's being rolled out in the considerations of it. I know there have oftentimes been jokes made about it, but honestly, the most people I want qualified in order to be able to handle, like I know often talking about the guy out of his mind on some kind of substance or some kind of mental health issue, covered in whatever he may be, a lot of words I can't say here. Honestly, some of the people that have gone through that level of training or do it professionally otherwise are some of the people I'd want most responding to those kind of situations.
Yes, sir. Also, the 988 hotline. Yes, it came about as due to the National Suicide Hotline Designation Act, Senate Bill 2661, introduced by Colorado Congressman Republican Cory Gardner.
I mean, this is one of those issues that, again, it may always seem to come as a surprise in this day and age whenever like bipartisanship actually happens, but there are many issues that don't have an inherent political bias to them, but rather are just important things that should be done. So that's why, I mean, maybe I often find myself considering them a little bit more highly than I would almost other issues these days, because if we can still find something that breaks through that kind of almost deadlock that happens sometimes and doesn't become this is a so-and-so issue or a so-and-so issue, as opposed to this is an American issue, that's where I find myself having some maybe modicum of faith restored.
Yes, and it may come as a surprise to Comrade Raul, but guess who signed it into law?
Do you believe it was the previous administration, since this has been going on for several years now?
Yes, sir. Donald J. Trump signed it into law. And one other thing, while we're talking about that other topic, to Comrade Raul, regarding Liz Cheney, who he praised as being part of the committee. Well, I don't think Liz Cheney cares much about her political career. Her poll numbers are underwater, but why should she care, Andrew? She'll probably get a job with CNN or MSNBC as a political commentator and make millions a year just as a guest.
I'm not going to necessarily fault anyone for continuing to look after their livelihood, but let's just say that even outside of this situation, the elected official to, well, in a lot of other cases, advocacy organization, revolving door is its own level of concern, and I wouldn't be surprised if what you say happens here would happen there as well.
Anyway, thank you very much. I turn the mic back over to you.
Sure thing. Thank you for the point on the call. Do appreciate it. You have a good one.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot of issues that we delve into here, and looks like me bringing up the idea of music blasting in your face is triggering someone over there on the comments, RJ and Kathy, talking about having a song stuck in their head. Now, I make no claims as to having caused that personally here. But yeah, I mean, seriously, having more mental health resources available, I don't think that's ever been exactly identified as a problem. Being like, no, there's too much mental health resources, guys. There's just too much. It's a problem. If anything, it's been literally the exact opposite. So again, until proven otherwise, going to find myself in favor of it, because making it more accessible, more available, more possible for people in whatever situation it is, whether it be someone having an acute crisis, someone having substance abuse disorders, or one of our veterans needing that help that has not been or has been very much put as a problem for them to be able to access previously. Probably an important thing, even as other resources being brought up here. Robert Carrasco mentioning Eagle Pass at capacity, with the citizens not being able to transported to their hospital because of the amounts brought to by Border Patrol and other services here. I mean, there's a lot of issues we're going to talk about and keep doing so. So we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Come out of this break, close out, forget what we can squeeze into the show here, and tell you what we got coming up for you. Maybe set the stage ever so slightly for Friday. Not that we haven't done that already. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Don't go anywhere. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the northbound Memorial Highway at Edgemere Boulevard, watch for a crash that's blocking the right lane there. Edgemere Boulevard west of Yarborough at Saigon Drive, an injury accident. 2 right lanes are blocked because of road debris on the Border Highway westbound at Fonseca. And I-10 westbound is still slow from Airway to Chelsea with 7-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Red Pilled America is the storytelling show that is saving our culture. This week we answer the question, do illegal aliens commit less crime than American citizens? Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
You should be able to earn money with your money, and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply. Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text FLASH to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text SLASH to 321-321. That's slash to 321-321.
Temple Mount Sinai Congregation invites you to the first ever Jewish Food Festival, Sunday, July 31st from noon to 8 p.m. at Temple Mount Sinai in El Paso. Live entertainment featuring Kansas City's own Colleen Deeker and Charlotte's Zach Singer. Don't miss the latke eating contest, wine pull, face painting for the kids, and much more. Admission is free. Sunday, July 31st, noon to 8 p.m. at Temple Mount Sinai, 4408 North Stanton Street. Go to JewishFestEPTX.com to learn more.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. We have covered quite a lot of ground today, and we'll continue doing so tomorrow. I mean, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. But Fridays, specifically, very important day for us on the program as we do, well, those things we do on Friday, which is Free For All Friday, taking on all the comments and calls throughout both hours of the show. We may have gotten a little bit, shall we say, loose on those otherwise strict definitions we got during the recent weeks, but well, we definitely let it all hang out on those days. As long as you keep it clean if you're calling in, we will dump the call. But in any case, we got at least one more call and recording that we'll try to squeeze in here before the end of the program here today. A couple of things we're working on for you, more about voting, more about, well, some of those industrial and maybe just economic implications for us in the area. So stay tuned for those as well in the coming weeks. But for the moment here, we do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I would like to also recommend this 988 number for people in crisis. I have used it myself, and I'm not too proud to say that, because it helps a lot to talk to someone else and get a different perspective. And it's in line with your own program, not to just listen to my opinion, but other people's opinions. We might learn something from other people. And this 988 is a fantastic resource, especially for veterans who left the military, retired from it, or whatever, and now they don't have that support group anymore. And they sit home and they feel lonely and sad for themselves and everything. This is fantastic. And I can't recommend it highly enough. And I thank you, Andrew, for having that show before this one and explaining exactly what it was. And I wish more people actually would stick to the topic of the day, which I think was that one. Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the point and for your experience with it. I think that might help people understand it better. Abstract is one thing, but understanding people's stories with it, very helpful. So thank you for sharing that specifically.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that here. So again, a lot of stuff, and we'll continue talking about the things that are important here. And at least one more comment head, and we haven't focused as much on it as we had maybe in previous eras of the show here, but we do still have the ability to take those pre-recorded calls. So even if you weren't able to get to us live, we do take emails, of course, but also if you want to get us to either the talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app or by using the pound 250 system. That way, simply you say Talk El Paso after dialing pound 250 on your phone. You'll be asked for a keyword here, and you can leave us a message much like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I just want to say, well, hopefully I can get this 250 call through before I get knocked out of the box, how excited I am, and I want to share with you that the RNC, run by that McDaniel girl, is threatening Donnie Dotard. He's not going to get any money if he runs for president. I'm telling you, the swords are out. They're out to get him. The chickens are coming home to roost for the Donnie Dotard. I just wanted to share that news with you people. I know how excited you are about that. So there you go. What do you think of that? Ha!
Again, if you want to leave your own message through that, it is still up and available. If we ever do fully sunset it here, we'll, of course, make an announcement on that. Don't worry. But, I mean, the idea of it here and that whole idea, I mean, really, I would be very surprised if ahead of maybe even before November, particularly if there was an announcement about any potential future campaign, if only because of the fundraising implications and not necessarily what we're talking about there coming direct from the RNC, but rather the potential. I mean, if y'all haven't signed up for all of the many political accounts that I have and the emails I get and the fundraising requests, anyone looking at like my texts and what I get in might think I was mildly schizophrenic myself because of all the different people I have contacted me, because I want to know what they're talking about. So I get it all. And let's just say that focus on it, to lose that as a potential, like, you got to keep us going so we can figure out running. Losing that would probably, frankly, be a blow to some of those national fundraising efforts. And if there's anything that the RNC exists for, it's fundraising. So I'm not surprised about that. So reading more into it, I mean, maybe there's an argument to be made, but we'll continue making that argument and delving into it as we do every Monday through Friday. So that's going to do it for us here today. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. I do want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. You know we'll be doing it tomorrow. Free for All Friday will be on deck for us, but otherwise every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the northbound Memorial Highway at Edgemere Boulevard, watch for a crash that's blocking the right lane there. Edgemere Boulevard west of Yarborough at Saigon Drive, an injury accident. 2 right lanes are blocked because of road debris on the Border Highway westbound at Fonseca. And I-10 westbound is still slow from Airway to Chelsea with 7-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that is miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily
Hosting an
basis
event
for
at the White
overall
House,
good
Biden
health
said
and
there's no
wellness.
doubt
And
economic
Navage is
growth
all
would be
natural
slowing
and
down
drug-free
after the rapid
at
recovery
Navage.com,
from the
Walmart,
depths of
Walgreens,
the
CVS,
COVID
Rite Aid,
pandemic.
Bed Bath, and
His
Target.
comments followed the release of a
Navage,
government report
AGE,
showing a
clean
second
nose,
straight
healthy
quarter of
life.
negative economic growth. The man accused of attacking New York Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin is going to stay behind bars until more is known about his mental health. The attack happened a week ago while Zeldin was giving a speech at a VFW post outside of Rochester. David Jacobonis faced a judge today while his attorney said he's a mentally scarred war veteran with a drinking problem who suffers from severe anxiety and a panic disorder. The U.S. Health Secretary is calling on states and Congress to do more in the fight against the monkeypox outbreak. Javier Becerra told reporters the Biden administration is doing everything possible to curb the spread of the virus. There are so many illegal immigrants being bused from Texas to the nation's capital that the mayor of Washington, D.C. is calling it a humanitarian